A single shaft of sunlight pierces a dark chamber only once a year, striking a stone altar with perfect timing. This is not magic, but the result of ancient builders mastering the physics of light and sound to construct sacred spaces. These were not just buildings, they were instruments designed to orchestrate profound spiritual experiences. By the end of this exploration, you will see these ancient sites not as silent ruins, but as active, resonant machines for transformation. How did cultures without modern technology encode celestial calendars into stone? Why would a temple be built to sing? The secrets lie in a forgotten science that merged the cosmos with human consciousness. What does it feel like to stand in a place designed to alter your very perception of reality? This entire architectural philosophy rests on a single, powerful idea. The universe was not a cold, empty void to these ancient cultures. It was a vibrant, breathing entity, and humanity was a part of its living fabric. To build a temple was to weave a single thread of that fabric into a place you could physically enter. For the Egyptians, their pyramids and temples were not just tombs or houses for the gods. They were duplicates of the primordial mound that rose from the waters of chaos at the dawn of creation. They were models of the cosmos itself, designed to maintain the order of the universe against the ever-present threat of disorder. When the sun god Ra traveled across the sky, his journey was mirrored in the long, dark corridors of their structures, culminating in a chamber that symbolized his rebirth. This was not symbolic in a loose, poetic sense. It was a functional, spiritual technology. The building's alignment with the sun was a direct electrical connection to the divine, ensuring the sun would, quite literally, rise again the next day. Their survival, they believed, depended on this architectural ritual. Similarly, the Maya viewed their towering pyramids as sacred mountains, points of contact with the celestial realm. Their precise observations of Venus and the sun were not mere astronomy. They were a form of divine communication. By building a structure that captured the light of the rising sun on the winter solstice, they were effectively shaking hands with a god, reaffirming a cosmic contract. This worldview explains the staggering effort involved. Moving multi-ton stones for generations was not about creating a lasting monument, though they certainly did. It was about building a permanent antenna, a receiver finely tuned to the frequencies of the cosmos. Every stone was placed with intention, every corridor shaped to guide not just people, but energies and spirits. The structure itself became a battery, storing and focusing the power of the heavens for ritual purposes. This profound belief in a living, interconnected cosmos is the master key that unlocks the mystery of their methods. It transforms what we see as simple stone arrangements into the components of a sophisticated machine, one designed not for industrial production, but for spiritual transformation. With this understanding of their ultimate goal, the specific techniques they use to manipulate physical reality become even more astonishing. The most breathtaking displays of this cosmic architecture are the solar alignments, where entire structures transformed into celestial timepieces. At the Pyramid of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza, something miraculous happens each equinox. As the sun sets, the stepped corners of the pyramid cast a series of triangular shadows down the northern staircase. These shadows merge with the stone serpent heads at the base, creating the undulating body of a giant snake, an illusion of the feathered serpent god Kukulkan descending from the heavens to earth. This was not a happy accident. It is the result of generations of astronomical observation encoded into stone, a feat of engineering that required knowing the exact angle of the sun on only 2 days of the entire year. This dramatic event served as a powerful public spectacle, reinforcing the authority of the priesthood who could seemingly command the gods themselves, while also marking a critical turning point in the agricultural calendar for the entire community. Across the ocean, the ancient tomb of Newgrange in Ireland presents an equally profound puzzle. Above its entrance, a narrow opening called a roof box was constructed with immense care. For just a few days around the winter solstice, and only for a precise 17-minute window, the rising sun aligns perfectly with this slit. A single beam of light travels down a long, dark passageway to illuminate the central burial chamber deep within the mound, a place otherwise shrouded in total darkness for the rest of the year. Imagine the impact of that moment. After the long, dark winter, the sun itself is invited into the realm of the ancestors, a clear signal of rebirth and the promised return of longer days. These phenomena were far more than just visual spectacles. They were communal affirmations of a cosmic order, a seamless blend of science and spirituality that connected people directly to the rhythms of the universe. But the manipulation of experience did not end with light alone. The very stones these builders chose were selected for their ability to interact with another invisible force, sound. But light was not the only element these master builders learned to bend to their will. They amplified its impact through a deliberate selection of materials, turning stone chambers into vessels of divine luminescence. In the depths of Egyptian temples, builders lined corridors and chambers with highly polished limestone and even sheets of gold leaf. When a shaft of sunlight entered, it did not simply land. It was captured and multiplied, bouncing from wall to wall until the entire space seemed to glow from within, bathing priests and statues in an otherworldly, radiant light during key ceremonies. This was not mere decoration. It was the creation of an atmosphere, a tangible feeling of a divine presence manifested through amplified brilliance. Far across the Mediterranean, the white marble of the Parthenon we see today is a pale ghost of its original splendor. In its prime, it was painted in vibrant blues, reds, and golds. Metallic accents, likely of polished bronze, were strategically placed to catch the Grecian sun. The entire structure would have shone as a brilliant beacon on the Athenian Acropolis, a dazzling man-made star proclaiming the glory of its patron goddess. This transformation of raw sunlight into a focused, symbolic radiance was a global phenomenon. In Mesoamerican cities, artisans crafted highly polished obsidian mirrors. These were not for vanity, but for ritual. Placed with precision, they could catch a single beam of light and redirect it onto a specific statue or altar symbol. To a witness, it would appear as if the stone icon itself had begun to glow with an internal fire, a powerful illusion of divine animation. This sophisticated use of reflective and colored surfaces reveals a deep, intuitive grasp of basic optics. They were not just observing light, they were choreographing it, using its properties to write a story of power and the sacred directly onto the architecture. This control over the quality of light turned their structures into instruments of spiritual theater, where every sunrise could be directed into a performance. And just as they learned to sculpt light to guide the eyes and the spirit, they discovered how to shape another invisible force to captivate the ears and the heart. The silent stones of these ancient sites can still sing if you know how to listen. Just as they sculpted light, these master builders became architects of sound, engineering auditory experiences that could alter consciousness. Deep within the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, a subterranean labyrinth carved from solid rock, certain chambers possess a strange property. They resonate at a low frequency, around 110 Hz, a pitch that can amplify the human voice into something much larger and more imposing. A single spoken word can ripple through the stone, creating echoes that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Researchers suggest this space might have been used for oracle ceremonies, where a priest's voice, transformed by the chamber itself, could be perceived as the disembodied voice of a god. This was not random echo. It was acoustic design, a way to use the physics of sound waves to manifest the divine. Centuries later, and in a different spiritual tradition, Gothic cathedral builders achieved a similar goal with different methods. Their vast, vaulted ceilings and hard, reflective surfaces were not just for visual grandeur. They were calculated to create long reverberation times, sometimes lasting 10 seconds or more. When a choir sang or a priest chanted, the sound would not stop. It would swell and linger, layering upon itself to create a thick, immersive blanket of harmony that physically enveloped the congregation. This sonic environment made the music feel celestial, as if it were not coming from human voices but from the architecture of heaven itself. How did they accomplish this without modern science? They worked from empirical knowledge learned over generations. They understood that a curved wall could focus sound like a lens, that a specific stone might naturally vibrate at a desired pitch, and that the shape of a room could either kill a whisper or make it travel for miles. These sonic landscapes did more than just sound impressive. They could disorient a person's sense of time, deepen a meditative state, and create an overwhelming feeling of otherworldliness. The space was no longer a passive container for ritual. It was an active participant, a responsive entity that spoke back. This profound fusion of sound and stone reveals a final, breathtaking layer of their genius, where light and acoustics were woven together into a single, seamless experience. The true power of these spaces was unlocked when light and sound were fused into a single, overwhelming experience. Ancient architects did not design for just the eyes or the ears alone. They engineered for the whole human sensorium, creating ritual environments where multiple senses were flooded simultaneously. This orchestration of perception, a kind of ancient synesthesia, was a deliberate tool to transport participants beyond ordinary awareness. At the sacred site of Delphi in Greece, the Pythia, the famed oracle, would deliver her prophecies from a chamber built over a geological fissure. Research suggests that vapors rising from this crack, possibly light hydrocarbon gases, could have induced a mild trance state. But this was only one part of the carefully staged ritual. Her altered consciousness would have been amplified by the chamber's unique acoustics, where the rhythmic chanting of priests and the resonant echoes of the stone itself would blend with the intoxicating fumes. The result was not just a woman speaking. It was a multi-sensory performance where the very air seemed to vibrate with a divine presence, her words emerging from a cascade of sensory input designed to bypass logic and speak directly to the spirit. This principle of sensory fusion was replicated across the ancient world. Within the colossal temple of Karnak in Egypt, ceremonies were timed with celestial precision. At the pivotal moment, the rising sun would be calculated to spear through the forest of columns in the hypostyle hall. Its rays would suddenly strike a statue of a god, causing the gilded figure to blaze into life. At that exact instant, the voices of priests would rise in a powerful chant, their sound magnified and drawn out by the vast, hard-surfaced hall. For a worshipper standing in that space, the experience was total. You were not just told the god was present, you saw a shaft of light bring a statue to radiant life, and you heard a chorus of voices that seemed to emanate from the stones around you. The combination was irresistible, a coordinated assault on the senses that could evoke tears, awe, and a profound sense of connection. These priests were, in effect, early masters of human psychology. They understood that the environment could be weaponized to shape belief, using architecture and ritual as tools to guide perception. By choreographing light and sound into a unified event, they created moments of such intensity that they were burned into the memory of every participant, transforming abstract faith into a tangible, unforgettable reality. This sophisticated manipulation of human experience points toward an even deeper layer of planning, one rooted in the very geometry of the spaces themselves. This hidden architecture of proportion was the silent partner to light and sound. Sacred geometry provided the mathematical backbone for every decision, a set of rules believed to be written into the fabric of the cosmos itself. These were not arbitrary measurements. They used ratios like the golden ratio, a relationship of approximately 1.618 to 1, which appears repeatedly in nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. When the builders of the Great Pyramid or the Parthenon encoded this same ratio into the dimensions of their structures, they were not just seeking beauty. They were building a bridge, creating a physical echo of the natural world's fundamental order. A room built to these proportions feels inherently balanced and stable to the human mind, a sensation we might describe as a quiet, subconscious harmony. But this harmony was also intensely practical. A chamber designed with the golden ratio naturally avoids acoustic dead spots and harsh echoes. Sound waves propagate more smoothly through such a space, allowing a chant or a musical note to swell and decay with a clean, resonant clarity. Light, too, behaves differently. The specific angles and reflective surfaces created by these proportions help to distribute sunlight evenly, preventing harsh shadows and creating that soft, internal glow that made statues seem to come alive. The very shapes that defined these buildings were chosen for their cosmic symbolism. The circle represented the heavens and eternal unity. The square stood for the solid, dependable earth. Many sacred structures, from Native American kivas to Buddhist stupas, combine these forms, creating an architectural statement that this place is where heaven and earth meet. The triangle, a shape of immense strength and direction, was used to draw the eye and the spirit upward. Builders also employed more complex figures, like the vesica piscis, the almond shape formed by the overlap of two circles. This shape was considered profoundly generative, a symbol of creation, and it often dictated the precise shape and placement of doorways and windows. Why place a door in such a specific shape? Because passing through it was not just a physical act, but a symbolic rebirth into a new state of being. Every architectural element was a word in a silent language of form, all working in concert. The result was a space that felt perfectly right on a level deeper than conscious thought. The geometry worked on the mind, creating a sense of peace and receptivity that prepared an individual for worship, meditation, or a profound spiritual encounter. This meticulous attention to form and ratio reveals that the ancient builder was part architect, part astronomer, and part psychologist. They understood that to shape a sacred experience, you must first shape the space that contains it with an almost musical precision. And this geometric precision did not stop at the building's walls. It extended outward, connecting the structure to the living landscape around it in a vast terrestrial web of alignment. The blueprint for these sacred spaces extended far beyond the foundation stones. Ancient builders read the landscape itself as a sacred map, selecting and sculpting sites in a practice known as Geomancy. This was the art of aligning a structure with the subtle energies of the earth, weaving it into a web of natural power that included underground water, magnetic fields, and the very contours of the land. A building was not placed upon the earth but was born from it, designed to be a focal point in a vast, energetic network. Consider the rolling expanse of Salisbury Plain. Stonehenge does not simply mark solar and lunar events in the sky above. the monument sits directly above a complex network of underground water streams. Some researchers propose that the movement of this water could create subtle shifts in the local magnetic field, while others suggest the specific sarsen stones, vibrating in the wind, might interact with these subterranean flows to produce very low-frequency sounds, felt more than heard. The site was not chosen for its flat, empty convenience. It was chosen because the land itself was alive with unseen forces that the builders sought to harness. This deep connection is even more visible at Machu Picchu. The Incas did not simply build a city on a mountain. They nestled it between specific, revered peaks they called apus, or mountain spirits. Key structures were positioned so that windows and doorways perfectly framed the rising of the sun or the Southern Cross constellation on significant dates. The sound of the wind channeling through the stone passages and the sight of mist weaving through the peaks were not background noise. They were an integral part of the ritual experience, a constant reminder that the city was in active dialogue with a living, breathing landscape. Why go to such incredible effort? Because a temple isolated from this network was considered inert. To be truly powerful, a sacred space had to be plugged directly into the Earth's own vitality. The natural world was not a separate reality. It was the primary source of power, and architecture was the means of tapping into it. This profound understanding of place ensured that every sunrise witnessed, every chant performed, was amplified by the very bones of the world. And by anchoring their structures so deeply into the rhythms of the earth, these architects also found a way to make time itself visible, marking its eternal cycles in stone. These stone calendars transformed the passage of time into a visible, communal event. At the Temple of Abu Simbel in Egypt, the scale of this ambition becomes breathtakingly clear. The entire structure was carved into a mountainside with such precision that on only 2 days of the year, the rising sun would travel over 200 feet through a dark hall to strike the inner sanctuary. There, it would illuminate the statues of 3 gods seated beside the pharaoh, Ramses II. The dates chosen were not arbitrary. They aligned with his birthday and his coronation day, a direct assertion that the king's power was inextricably linked to the solar cycle itself. The modern effort to save this temple underscores the incredible accuracy of its ancient engineers. When the rising waters of the Aswan Dam threatened to submerge it in the 1960s, the entire monument was cut into massive blocks and moved to higher ground. The most critical part of this monumental project was ensuring that the solar alignment was preserved perfectly. They succeeded, and to this day, the sun still performs its ancient ritual, a testament to a knowledge so precise it could be dismantled and reassembled by a new civilization millennia later. High in the Andes, another stone instrument marked time with similar genius. The Intihuatana at Machu Picchu, an intricately carved granite pillar whose name translates to the hitching post of the sun, served as a sophisticated solar clock. During the equinoxes, the sun would stand almost directly overhead, causing the stone to cast no shadow at all. On other days, the shifting angles of its shadow created a precise calendar etched onto the surrounding stone platform. Inca priests used these readings to determine the optimal times for planting, harvesting, and conducting the ceremonies that ensured the sun's continued journey across the sky. This was not an abstract exercise. The community's survival, its food supply, and its spiritual well-being depended on the accurate reading of this stone. These architectural calendars actively wove the community into the cosmic order. The entire population would gather to witness the sunlight hit the sacred statue or to see the shadow disappear from the hitching post. These events triggered a cycle of festivals, sacrifices, and public rituals that reinforced social bonds and affirmed the spiritual leadership of the ruling class. The authority to interpret the sky was the authority to guide a civilization. This required a tradition of observation so meticulous that knowledge could be refined and passed down through countless generations, each one adding to a cumulative understanding of the cosmos. And this profound desire to mark sacred time in stone was a universal impulse, one that echoed across continents and cultures in surprisingly similar ways. The same universal principles of light and sound took on dramatically different forms across the world, each culture weaving the cosmic rules into a design that reflected its own soul. A Hindu temple guides you through a series of increasingly dark and confined spaces, a journey inward that culminates at the Garbhagriha, the womb chamber. This inner sanctum is kept in near total darkness, a profound contrast to the world outside. Only the presiding priest enters, and light is not used for general illumination. Instead, it is a precise tool. A single shaft of sunlight might be admitted through a strategically placed opening only at dawn on a specific day, or a single oil lamp might be positioned to make the statue of the deity suddenly glow from the shadows. This was not about lighting a room, it was about orchestrating darshan, the sacred moment of seeing and being seen by the divine. The dramatic reveal in the darkness made the encounter intensely personal and awe-inspiring, a moment of divine grace pulled from the void. Half a world away, Byzantine architects pursued a completely different relationship with the sacred through light. Their churches were not journeys into darkness, but explosions of radiance. Every surface was covered in gold leaf mosaics, and windows were positioned not for clarity, but for effect. Sunlight would strike these countless reflective surfaces, fracturing into a million points of shimmering, moving light that filled the vast space. This was not the light of the sun, but a representation of the uncreated light of God, a tangible, overwhelming atmosphere of heaven on earth. This visual spectacle was paired with a sonic one. The domes that crowned these structures were perfect resonators. When a chant began, the sound would rise, strike the curved ceiling, and cascade back down in a layered, ethereal chorus that seemed to have no single source. You were immersed in a bath of golden light and harmonious sound, an experience designed to make you feel you were standing within a living, breathing celestial realm. Back in the dense jungles of the Maya, the approach was one of stark, celestial punctuation. Their temple interiors were profoundly dark, sealed chambers that served as a canvas for a single, precise beam of light. A narrow doorway, a strategically aligned window, or a small chimney-like shaft was engineered to act like a cosmic spotlight. On a specific day, perhaps a solstice or an equinox, the rising or setting sun would send a needle-thin blade of light slicing through the darkness. This beam would travel across the floor or wall, and for a few critical minutes, it would highlight a single carved glyph, a ritual altar, or the eyes of a stone mask. In that moment, the building transformed from a static structure into a dynamic timekeeper, the sun itself underlining a sacred message written in stone. The shared human impulse is clear, to use the environment as a mediator for the sacred. Yet the methods were a direct expression of local cosmology, the Hindu journey inward, the Byzantine aspiration upward, and the Maya's precise celestial contract. This stunning diversity raises a compelling question. With no modern tools to speak of, how did they translate these grand visions into such perfectly aligned stone realities? The absence of laser levels and computer models makes their precision even more astounding. How did they translate celestial cycles into perfect stone alignments? They began with the simplest of tools, mastering the fundamentals of geometry and time. A single, straight pole planted in the earth, known as a gnomon, became their most powerful instrument. By carefully marking the tip of its shadow throughout the day, they could trace a perfect east-west line. By observing the shadow's changing length over a year, they could pinpoint the solstices, the longest and shortest days. This humble stick was in effect a portable observatory, allowing them to map the sun's journey directly onto the landscape. For measuring time during construction or rituals, water clocks provided a steady, reliable flow, marking hours with a consistency that sundials could not offer under clouded skies. And for spanning vast distances, like the immense rows of standing stones at Carnac in France, they used a technique of sighting poles. By aligning a series of poles in a straight line across the terrain, they could extend a perfect visual axis for miles, ensuring that every menhir was placed according to a grand preordained plan. This geometric genius extended to the very shapes of their buildings. Long before the formal Pythagorean theorem, builders were using ropes to create perfect right angles and complex shapes. They knew that a rope divided into segments of 3, 4, and 5 units, when stretched tight, would form a perfect right triangle. This knowledge of Pythagorean triples is visibly encoded in the base dimensions of the Great Pyramid, a structure whose near-perfect squareness and orientation still baffle surveyors. They were not just stacking stones, they were using ropes as flexible compasses and rulers, weaving sacred geometry directly into the foundation of their world. The creation of resonant chambers required a different kind of tool, the human ear itself. Without oscilloscopes to measure sound waves, ancient acoustic engineers relied on empirical testing. We can envision a master builder clapping his hands or chanting a specific tone inside a newly carved chamber, listening intently to how the sound behaved. Did it die quickly, or did it linger and swell? Did it create a harsh echo or a smooth, enveloping resonance? Using this feedback, they would instruct workers to subtly adjust the curvature of a wall, to smooth a surface, or to carve a niche that would break up an unwanted standing wave. This was a slow, iterative process of tuning the stone like a musical instrument, a craft refined over generations until the chamber could transform a human voice into something divine. This hands-on mastery, combined with centuries of accumulated observation, created a legacy of precision that challenges our modern assumptions. We often equate technology with complexity, with circuits and engines. Their technology was one of profound simplicity married to deep, patient understanding. They did not need advanced machinery because they had a sophisticated language of geometry, a mastery of material properties, and a generational patience we can scarcely comprehend today. This ingenuity forces us to ask a deeper question. What if we have lost a form of knowledge that speaks not just to the mind, but to the senses and the spirit? To see this intricate fusion of principles in action, we can look to one of the most enigmatic and complete examples left to us. Deep within the geometric heart of the Great Pyramid, a final layer of its genius awaits discovery. The King's Chamber, built from massive, polished granite blocks, is more than a static room. It is a finely tuned resonant chamber, an instrument designed to transform sound into an experience. The very stone of this space possesses a remarkable acoustic property. When a specific tone is chanted or struck, the chamber itself responds, amplifying and sustaining the sound in a way that makes it feel immense and all-encompassing. This is not a random echo, but the result of precise mathematical ratios encoded into the chamber's dimensions, creating a perfect environment for specific frequencies to thrive. At the center of this sonic architecture lies the granite sarcophagus. Striking it produces a deep, resonant note. Researchers have found that the chamber itself seems to favor a frequency very close to 110 Hz. Modern studies into brainwave activity suggest that exposure to this specific low frequency can shift brain patterns, moving from ordinary beta waves toward more relaxed receptive alpha states, and even toward the theta waves associated with deep meditation and heightened intuition. For an initiate lying in that chamber, a chant sustained at this frequency would not just be heard with the ears. It would be felt as a physical vibration, a hum that seemed to emanate from the stone itself, washing over the mind and guiding it into an altered state of consciousness. This sonic manipulation was likely integrated with the chamber's other features. The so-called air shafts, perfectly aligned with celestial bodies, may have served a dual purpose. While they channeled starlight, they could also have acted as acoustic waveguides. A voice speaking into one of these narrow shafts could have its sound carried to another part of the pyramid, creating the illusion of a disembodied whisper from the stars. Alternatively, they might have been used to filter out all but the purest resonant frequencies, refining the sound within the chamber. This transforms our understanding of the pyramid from a silent tomb into a dynamic ritual machine. A ceremony here would have been a symphony of sensory engineering. The initiate, perhaps lying in darkness, would first feel the deep vibration of the resonant tone. Then, at the peak of the experience, a shaft of starlight could pierce the darkness through one of the alignment channels, illuminating a sacred symbol. The combination of this targeted light and the enveloping, mind-altering sound would create an unforgettable moment of perceived contact with the divine. The Great Pyramid stands as our ultimate testament to this ancient fusion of science and spirit, where every block, every angle, and every material was chosen not just for structural integrity, but for its ability to shape human perception. This profound integration of principles is not unique to this one famous monument, but awaits discovery in countless other sacred spaces across the globe. This sonic mastery was not confined to the grandest monuments. Smaller, more intimate sites scattered across the globe whisper secrets of an acoustic knowledge once held by many. In the underground labyrinth of the Hypogeum in Malta, carved over 5,000 years ago, certain niches transform a deep male voice into something far greater. The sound does not merely echo, it resonates at a powerful frequency that vibrates through your chest and bones, a physical sensation that could make a spoken word feel like the commanding voice of the earth itself. This was likely no accident of construction. In the dim, ritual space, this effect could have been used to manifest a deity's presence, turning human speech into a collective, vibrational experience that bypassed the ears to speak directly to the body. Far across the Atlantic, the Mayan site of Palenque holds its own auditory mystery. As you ascend the interior stairway of the Temple of the Inscriptions, leading to the resting place of the ruler Pakal, your footsteps create a bizarre and beautiful sound. Each step produces a sharp, chirping echo that ripples through the stone corridor, a sound uncannily similar to the call of the sacred Quetzal bird. In Maya cosmology, the Quetzal was a messenger between the worlds of the living and the spirits. This acoustic feature, carefully engineered into the stair's design, would have transformed a simple climb into a symbolic journey. With every step, the visitor was accompanied by the voice of the sacred bird, audibly linking the ruler's tomb to the celestial realm. Even further north, in the ancient stone village of Skara Brae in Scotland, the architecture tells a story of communal life shaped by sound. The stone beds and dressers are not randomly placed. Their arrangements seem to create subtle sound zones, focusing and containing the human voice in specific ways. A storyteller seated in one spot might find their voice carried clearly to a small group, while other sounds from the outside were muted. This suggests an early understanding of how to use a room's layout to facilitate listening, perhaps for sharing oral histories or conducting small household ceremonies. These widespread examples from vastly different cultures reveal a profound truth. The deliberate shaping of sound was not an exclusive secret of powerful empires. It was a shared architectural language, a common tool used to create meaningful experiences from the local village level to the grandest ceremonial centers. The persistence of these sonic designs across millennia invites a deeper question. What was the intended effect on the human mind? The consistent use of resonant frequencies and focused echoes points toward an intuitive grasp of acoustic psychology. A deep, vibrating hum can calm the nerves and induce a state of relaxed focus. A sudden, symbolic echo like the Quetzal's call can trigger a sense of wonder and connection to the symbolic. A space that perfectly carries a storyteller's voice can foster deep communal bonds and memory. These builders were not just working with stone, they were working with the fabric of human consciousness, using sound as a subtle tool to guide emotion, belief, and social cohesion. This orchestration of environment was a direct channel to the human mind itself. Ancient priests and architects were, in effect, master psychologists, wielding light and sound as tools to shape consciousness. They understood that a sudden, dramatic shift in sensory input could unlock powerful emotional responses. Picture a worshipper standing in a pitch-black chamber for hours, perhaps in a state of fasting or prayer. The air is cool and still, the silence absolute. Then, at a precisely calculated moment, a single, brilliant beam of sunlight pierces the gloom, striking a golden statue directly before them. The visual shock is immense, but the emotional impact is even greater. This sudden illumination can feel like a personal revelation, a moment of divine grace bestowed from the heavens. In that instant, the carefully constructed narrative of a God's presence becomes an undeniable personal reality. The architecture engineered an epiphany. Sound worked in a more subtle but equally potent way. Prolonged exposure to low-frequency resonant sound, like the deep hum produced in certain stone chambers, has a measurable effect on the human brain. It can disrupt our normal sense of balance and time, creating feelings of lightheadedness or a detachment from the everyday world. In this altered state, the mind becomes highly suggestible, and sensory perceptions can blur. A flickering shadow might be interpreted as a moving spirit. A whispered suggestion from a priest could be experienced as an internal voice. What we might now understand as a physiological response to specific sound waves was, for the ancient participant, a direct encounter with the divine, a spiritual vision, or even a moment of possession. By controlling these environmental variables with such precision, the ritual leaders could reliably guide entire groups of people into shared, profound experiences. The sacred space was no longer a backdrop for the ritual. It was the primary agent of transformation, a machine designed to open the human spirit to the possibility of the sacred. This ancient form of environmental psychology reveals a deep, intuitive grasp of the mind-body connection, a knowledge that modern architects and designers are only just beginning to consciously apply in spaces meant for healing and reflection. This sophisticated manipulation of perception points directly to the individuals who held the keys to this knowledge, the master builders and priests who served as the conductors of these cosmic orchestras. These master builders and priests were the living operating system of these sacred machines. Their minds held the accumulated wisdom of generations, a secret science of the stars and stones passed down through rigorous training. In ancient Egypt, the priesthood of Heliopolis were more than just religious leaders. They were the nation's top astronomers and engineers, possessing a precise understanding of the solar cycle that allowed them to design temples where the sunrise would hit the inner sanctuary on the exact day of a pharaoh's coronation. This knowledge was not considered a human invention, but a divine revelation, a sacred trust. Their role was to use this celestial blueprint to maintain Mat, the cosmic order, ensuring the Nile would flood, the harvests would come, and chaos would be held at bay. The correct alignment of a temple was not an architectural feature. It was a spiritual necessity for the survival of the entire civilization. Across Europe, the Druids are believed to have served a similar function for the builders of Stonehenge and other megalithic sites. While they left no written records, the staggering accuracy of these monuments points to a class of individuals who dedicated their lives to observing the sky. They would have tracked the subtle wobble in the moon's orbit over an 18.6-year cycle, knowledge required to predict eclipses and mark the extreme rising and setting points of the moon. This long-term, patient observation allowed them to encode this complex celestial calendar into the arrangement of massive stones. Their power came from their ability to read the sky and to translate that reading into a terrestrial language that everyone could witness. These knowledge keepers were the ultimate interdisciplinary thinkers, merging roles we would now separate into priest, astronomer, physicist, and project manager. They conducted what we would call long-term experiments, noting how sound behaved in a half-carved chamber or how a shadow fell at dawn over decades. This information was too precious to be written down casually. It was protected through oral tradition and initiation rites, ensuring that only those who had proven their dedication and understanding could access the keys to the cosmos. The sacred space remained dormant, a potential, until the human mind with the correct knowledge came to activate it. The power was not in the stone alone, but in the intelligence that whispered to the stone, telling it how to catch the light and shape the sound. This profound human element, the keeper of the flame, invites us to look even closer at the symbolic vocabulary they etched into the world. Every beam of light and every echo was a word in a sacred language. These ancient builders were not just creating effects, they were telling stories, using physics to narrate their deepest beliefs about how the world began and humanity's place within it. That serpent of light slithering down the pyramid at Chichen Itza was far more than a clever trick of the sun. For the Maya, it was Kukulkan himself, the feathered serpent god of creation and the sky, physically descending to bless the earth. The solar event was a scripted epiphany, a public demonstration that the god was real, present, and actively engaged with the community. This transformed the entire site from a monument into a living myth, reenacted with celestial precision. Similarly, the architecture of a Hindu temple is a guided meditation in stone. The path you walk is a deliberate symbolic journey. You begin in the bright, chaotic outer halls, full of noise and activity, representing the distracting illusion of the everyday world. As you move inward, the spaces grow darker, quieter, and more confined. This progression is a physical metaphor for turning your senses inward, away from external stimulation. You finally arrive at the Garbhagriha, the womb chamber, a place of near total darkness and profound silence. Here, in the absence of all sensory input, the soul is meant to encounter the formless, ultimate reality of Brahman. The architecture itself is the spiritual teacher, guiding you through the stages of enlightenment simply by how you move through its spaces. Even the specific qualities of sound were loaded with symbolic weight. In the vast resonating chambers of Gothic cathedrals, the reverberation time was not an accidental byproduct of the design. It was a calculated feature. When a congregation chanted Amen at the end of a prayer, the sound did not stop. It swelled and lingered, filling the vast space for a symbolically significant duration, sometimes lasting 10 seconds or more. This was not just an echo. It was an architectural affirmation, a tangible representation of the eternal nature of God's Word, continuing to resonate long after the human voices had fallen silent. The space itself was proclaiming that the prayer was now in the hands of the divine, its energy continuing to circulate in a realm beyond time. This deep layering of literal and symbolic meaning made every visit to a sacred space an act of learning. An initiate did not need to read a text to understand the soul's journey toward unity. They simply needed to walk through a temple. They did not need a lecture on the eternal nature of the divine. They could hear it in the stones. The architecture was a three-dimensional scripture, an immersive book written in shadow, resonance, and stone. To experience it was to receive its instruction directly, bypassing the intellect to speak to a deeper part of the human spirit. These spaces were multidimensional works of art, where science and storytelling fused into a single, transformative power. And this sophisticated ancient understanding is now meeting the rigorous tools of modern science, as researchers begin to measure and quantify what these master builders knew by heart. Modern technology is now giving a voice to stones that have been silent for millennia. The emerging science of archaeoacoustics uses sensitive digital tools to measure the sound properties of ancient chambers, providing hard data for what was once just speculation. Researchers can now create an impulse response, a kind of acoustic fingerprint, by producing a short, sharp sound inside a space like the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni. Sophisticated software then analyzes how the sound waves behave, mapping their reflections and resonances with incredible precision. The data confirms that these chambers are not just accidentally echoey. They are finely tuned to amplify specific frequencies, often around 110 Hz, a tone known to have distinct effects on human brain activity. This is not guesswork anymore. It is measurable, repeatable proof that these spaces were engineered for their sonic impact. The same rigorous analysis is being applied to the play of light. With laser scanning and solar alignment software, archaeologists can recreate the exact position of the sun and stars thousands of years ago. They can build a perfect digital model of Newgrange and run a virtual simulation of the winter solstice sunrise. The results are unequivocal. That narrow beam of light traveling down the passage to the inner chamber is not a fortunate alignment. The roof box, the passage, and the chamber are all positioned with a degree of accuracy that leaves no doubt about the builder's intent. They knew exactly what they were doing. This technology does not strip the magic from these places. On the contrary, it reveals that the magic was rooted in a profound and hard-won understanding of physics. This marriage of ancient intuition and modern measurement is opening a new window into the past. We are no longer just looking at silent ruins. We are beginning to hear them as their original inhabitants did, and to see the celestial dramas they were built to stage. The builders did not have our instruments, but they possessed something just as powerful: generations of patient observation and a deep, empirical curiosity about the world. They tested, they observed, and they refined their designs based on the results. What we call mysticism was often their form of applied science. This validation from our own technology forces a humbling shift in perspective. It asks us to reconsider not just how they built, but why they invested such immense effort to harmonize their world with the invisible forces of light and sound. This seamless fusion of science and spirit reveals a fundamental schism in our modern worldview. We often treat the pursuit of physical knowledge as a journey separate from the search for transcendent meaning, but the ancient builders saw no such division. For the astronomer priests who charted the stars, calculating the precise angle of a solstice sunrise was a devotional act. Their meticulous observation of the physical world was in itself a form of prayer, a direct engagement with the intelligence they perceived behind creation. To measure was to honor. To understand a natural law was to come closer to the divine lawgiver. This integrated perspective meant that a temple's perfect alignment was not a triumph of engineering over faith, but a magnificent expression of faith through engineering. The structure had to be scientifically sound because that rigor was what made it spiritually potent. It was a single, unified endeavor to harmonize human life with the cosmos. Our contemporary approach, which so often separates the laboratory from the sanctuary, would have been utterly foreign to them. They operated in a world where every equation had a soul, and every resonant frequency held a message. This loss of holistic understanding may be the true price of our specialization. We have gained immense technical power, but we have fragmented a once coherent reality into separate, non-communicating domains. The legacy of these sites, however, stands as a silent rebuke to this fragmentation. They challenge us to ask what our own world might look like if we once again sought to build environments that address the whole human being. Imagine a hospital where the acoustics and light are designed not just for efficiency, but to promote healing on a psychological level. Consider a school or a public library whose very architecture inspires both wonder and calm, nurturing curiosity and community. This is not a call to abandon reason for mysticism, but to reunite them, to recognize that our deepest need for meaning is not opposed to our drive for discovery. These ancient stones whisper that the physical and the metaphysical were never meant to be divorced. They are two lenses focusing on the same profound truth, a truth written into the very fabric of light and sound. And this leads us to a final, haunting consideration about the quiet erosion of such unified knowledge over the long arc of history. The grand symphony of stone eventually fell silent. Across continents, the deep understanding that powered these sacred machines began to fade, fractured by the slow collapse of empires, shifting spiritual landscapes, and the relentless erosion of centuries. The oral traditions of the master builders, the precise chants and geometric secrets passed from mentor to apprentice, were often the first to vanish. With the rise of new, centralized religious powers, many ancient sites were deliberately abandoned or repurposed. A temple aligned to a sun god might be converted into a church, its original function forgotten. The intricate knowledge behind its alignment was no longer seen as sacred science, but as a pagan curiosity to be suppressed or erased. The stones remained, but the operating manual was lost. For generations, these structures stood as magnificent enigmas. When early archaeologists from the Enlightenment era first arrived with their measuring tapes and notebooks, they often misinterpreted what they found. They saw the pyramids solely as tombs and Stonehenge as a crude druidic temple. They lacked the context to see these places as the sophisticated instruments they were, because their own worldview had already separated science from spirituality. The true purpose of a roof box or a resonant chamber was invisible to them. The real turning point began with the development of new tools. Digital laser scanning and archaeoacoustics provided a kind of universal translator, allowing us to finally measure the intentions the builders had carved into the rock. We could now prove that a specific chamber was tuned to a specific frequency, or that a passageway was aligned to a star not seen for millennia. This is not just academic rediscovery. It is a form of time travel, a conversation across the ages where we are slowly learning to ask the right questions and understand the answers encoded in the stone. Each new finding, from the sonic properties of a Maltese hypogeum to the precise solar alignment of an Andean temple, adds another piece to a vast global puzzle. Yet this very process of understanding brings a new urgency. As we learn how delicate these acoustic and optical effects are, we also confront the fragility of the sites themselves. The hum of modern traffic can drown out ancient resonances. The vibration from a nearby quarry can throw a delicate alignment off by a fraction of a degree over time. The footfall of millions of visitors can wear down the very surfaces that once reflected light and sound with such perfection. Preserving these places is no longer just about protecting crumbling ruins. It is about safeguarding a recovered frequency, a recaptured beam of light, ensuring that the rediscovered song of the ancients does not fall silent once more. The same precision that makes these ancient instruments so powerful also makes them heartbreakingly fragile. Their delicate alignments and resonant chambers face a slow erosion from forces their builders could never have foreseen. Consider the Parthenon, its white marble once a brilliant reflector of the Athenian sun. Today, acid rain from urban pollution etches its surface, slowly dulling the stone. This is not merely cosmetic damage. That subtle change in reflectivity could alter the very quality of light the temple was engineered to produce, dimming a sacred radiance cultivated over 2 millennia. Inside the Great Pyramid's king's chamber, the air itself is changing. The breath and body heat of thousands of daily visitors elevate the humidity within the sealed space. This shift in the microclimate can dampen the chamber's legendary acoustics, muffling the resonant frequencies that once guided minds into altered states. The stones remain, but the song they were tuned to sing is growing quieter. Even the solid earth beneath these monuments is no longer a stable foundation. In some regions, rising groundwater levels from climate change can subtly saturate the ground, causing imperceptible shifts in the foundational stones of a megalithic circle. Over time, a shift of even a single centimeter can be enough to throw off a solstice alignment that has been true for thousands of years. The challenge for modern conservators is profound. How do you preserve not just the physical object, but the intangible experience it was designed to deliver? It requires a global effort, using non-invasive scanning to monitor structural integrity and controlling visitor access to protect delicate sensory environments. This urgent work to safeguard our shared heritage is now inspiring a new generation of architects and designers who look to these ancient principles not as relics, but as a blueprint for the future. The principles that once animated ancient temples are now being reborn in steel and glass. This is not a simple echo of the past, but a conscious revival, a recognition that the human need for resonant, meaningful space did not vanish with the arrival of the digital age. Modern architects and artists are looking back to these ancient models, discovering that the old ways hold powerful solutions for the disorienting pace of contemporary life. In concert halls like the Berlin Philharmonic, the goal is no longer just to project sound, but to sculpt it. The hall's vineyard-style seating and irregular, cavernous surfaces scatter sound waves, creating a rich, immersive auditory environment where every listener feels enveloped by the music. This diffuse resonance is a direct parallel to the enveloping chants within a Gothic cathedral or the resonant hum of a Maltese hypogeum, using modern acoustic science to achieve an ancient emotional effect. The intention is the same: to use architecture to transport the listener beyond the everyday. Artists are exploring this same territory with light. James Turrell creates installations that are, in essence, modern sacred spaces. He uses carefully controlled apertures and hidden light sources to craft volumes of color and radiance that seem to have physical presence. Stepping into one of his sky spaces, where the open ceiling frames a shifting portion of the sky, your perception of depth and boundary dissolves. You are not just looking at light, you are feeling it, much like an initiate in a Mayan temple watching a single beam of sunlight pierce the ritual darkness. Turrell's work demonstrates that the manipulation of light to alter consciousness is as potent today as it was thousands of years ago, a tool for quieting the mind and inviting profound contemplation. This movement extends beyond art into the very structure of our cities through the science of biomimicry. This field looks to nature's time-tested patterns and forms for sustainable design solutions, and in doing so, it often rediscovers the wisdom of ancient builders. The same structural efficiency found in a spider's web or a honeycomb can be seen in the vaults of a Gothic cathedral. The natural ventilation principles of a termite mound mirror the passive cooling systems employed in some ancient Middle Eastern architecture. Our ancestors intuitively built in harmony with natural forces because they saw themselves as part of that system. Now, with the aid of technology, we are consciously returning to that philosophy, designing buildings that breathe, that use sunlight not just for illumination but for mood and well-being, and that foster human connection rather than isolation. This modern reinterpretation is not about nostalgia. It is a practical acknowledgement that the deepest human needs for wonder, for peace, and for community have not changed. The stones of the ancients are speaking again, and a new generation is finally learning their language, weaving the timeless patterns of light, sound, and form into the fabric of our future. The allure of these ancient sites often invites speculation that can overshadow their true wonder. One persistent myth suggests that only visitors from other worlds or a forgotten, super-advanced civilization could have achieved such precision. This idea, however, does a profound disservice to the staggering ingenuity of our own ancestors. The evidence points not to alien intervention, but to the power of the human mind applied with patience over generations. We see the same principles of celestial alignment and resonant design emerging independently across the globe, from the Mayan world to ancient Egypt and beyond. This is not proof of a shared external teacher, but a testament to a shared human capacity for observation, experimentation, and a deep desire to connect with the cosmos. They used the tools they had, ropes and poles, water and stone, and a relentless curiosity that needed no outside help. Another layer of nuance involves the sounds these spaces produce. While many chambers were clearly tuned with acoustic intent, not every echo was part of a master plan. Sometimes, a resonant effect might have been an unexpected gift of the construction process, a happy accident discovered only after the last stone was set. The true genius, however, lies in what happened next. Upon discovering that a particular niche amplified a chant or produced a strange, vibrating hum, the knowledge keepers of the time would have recognized its potential. They would have then incorporated that accidental property into their rituals, intentionally using the space for its newfound sonic power. The effect itself might have been serendipitous, but its application was deliberate, transforming a quirk of physics into a tool of ceremony. The same critical eye must be applied to the alignments we find. Not every doorway facing the sunrise was a precise solar calendar, and not every long corridor was aimed at a specific star. Some orientations were purely topographical, aligning with a sacred mountain or a river, anchoring the structure to the spiritual map of the local landscape. Others held symbolic meaning, representing a spiritual concept rather than an astronomical event. To assume every line is a complex celestial pointer is to miss the richer, more varied language of their architecture. By applying the simple principle of Occam's razor, that the simplest explanation is often the most likely, we can clear away the fog of fantasy. The most plausible answer is that these cultures achieved their wonders with the knowledge and tools available to them, refined through centuries of careful observation. This evidence-based perspective does not diminish their accomplishments. It makes them far more meaningful, celebrating human intellect and spiritual yearning as the true forces behind these marvels. Giving credit where it is truly due allows us to focus on the real, tangible lessons these spaces offer about our own potential for creativity and connection. That universal yearning for transcendence finds its ultimate expression in the solitary human heart standing within one of these spaces. While the architecture was grand and the rituals communal, the final destination for the manipulated light and shaped sound was always the individual's inner world. For a single initiate lying in the resonant darkness of the king's chamber, the enveloping hum was not a public spectacle but a private key, unlocking a door to a personal encounter with the sacred. The carefully staged sunrise at Abu Simbel was a national event, but for each person witnessing the light touch the god statue, it was a moment of private awe, a confirmation of their personal faith within the larger cosmic order. These spaces were designed to be experienced from the inside out, to trigger a shift in individual consciousness that would then ripple back into the community, strengthening the collective belief. We can still access a shadow of this experience today. Think of the hush that falls in a great library or the collective intake of breath in a darkened theater as a film begins. In those moments, we willingly surrender our individual distractions to a shared atmosphere, allowing the environment to guide our feelings and focus. The ancient builders simply perfected this art, using stone and alignment to create environments of such overwhelming sensory power that the boundary between the self and the sacred seemed to dissolve. Their goal was to engineer a moment of grace, a point of contact where a person could feel, if only for a heartbeat, that they were part of something infinitely larger than themselves. This meticulous choreography of space was a psychological blueprint for the soul. Every step an ancient worshipper took was a deliberate move along a pre-written path of transformation. Approaching a Greek temple, you did not simply walk up to a building. You began at a distance, your view of the inner sanctuary completely blocked by massive columns. The journey itself was an ascent, climbing a series of steps that lifted you physically and symbolically from the mundane world below. The only sounds might have been the distant murmur of the city and the crunch of your own feet on the sacred way. As you drew closer, your anticipation grew, filtered through the rhythmic forest of columns that partially revealed, then concealed, the entrance. You were being prepared, your senses focused, before you ever saw the central figure of worship. Then you crossed the final threshold into the naos, the inner chamber. After the bright sunlight, your eyes would struggle to adjust to the dim interior. And there, at the far end, illuminated by a hidden shaft of light from an opening in the roof, stood the colossal cult statue of the deity. It was not merely a statue in a room. It was a presence, dramatically revealed by a beam of sunlight that made the gold and ivory gleam as if with inner life. This was no accident. It was the architectural climax of a carefully staged story. In the profound initiation rites of the Eleusinian mysteries, this sensory manipulation reached its peak. A neophyte or initiate would be guided through a sequence of spaces and experiences designed to symbolize a journey into the underworld and a return to life. They might be led through utter darkness, a void of sight and sound that represented a symbolic end. Then, at the pivotal moment, a blinding flash of light would erupt, accompanied by a tremendous, resonant sound from a gong or a chorus of voices. This sudden, overwhelming sensory shift was not just spectacle. It was a physical metaphor for the death of the old self and a rebirth into a new state of spiritual knowledge. The terror and the ecstasy were part of the lesson, written not on parchment, but directly onto the human nervous system through the masterful control of environment. The architecture was the silent narrator of this powerful drama, its chambers and passages serving as the chapters of a story about overcoming darkness to reach illumination. To walk through such a space was to become the protagonist in a myth, your own feelings of anticipation, fear, and awe being the very points of the narrative. This deep focus on guiding the individual soul, however, was always in service of a larger purpose, one that resonated through the entire community. The stones themselves were never the final destination for this orchestrated awe. This grand sensory design served a profound and practical purpose, weaving the sacred directly into the social fabric of the community. When thousands gathered to watch the Serpent of Light descend the pyramid at Chichen Itza, they were not merely spectators at a celestial show. They were participants in a public ritual that affirmed a clear social contract. The ruler or high priest, positioned as the sole interpreter of this cosmic event, was visibly reinforced as the essential intermediary between the people and the gods. His authority was not just declared, it was demonstrated by the heavens themselves, solidifying the community's hierarchy in a moment of shared, breathtaking wonder. This was sensory engineering in the service of social order, making abstract power structures feel as real and inevitable as the sun rising in the sky. In more intimate settings, the effects were equally potent. Deep within the resonant chambers of the hypogeum in Malta, a small group of initiates would have felt the low hum vibrate through their bodies simultaneously. This was not a private meditation, but a collective physical experience. The sound waves moving through the stone would also move through the group, creating a powerful, non-verbal bond of shared revelation. In that moment, the community was not just a collection of individuals, it was a single body, united by a sensation that could not be replicated in the outside world. This forged a collective memory so strong it could define a person's identity and loyalty for a lifetime. By creating these unforgettable events that could only be accessed communally, the architects of these spaces guaranteed cultural continuity. The stories of what happened there, the chants that were sung, and the light that was seen would be passed down through generations, becoming the foundational myths of the culture itself. The abstract principles of their religion were made tangible through a shared gasp, a collective shudder, or a unified moment of silence. In this way, the mastery of light and sound transcended spiritual technology, becoming a sophisticated tool for social cohesion and political stability. The true genius of these spaces lies not only in their alignment with the stars, but in their profound alignment with the human need to belong to something greater than ourselves. Their legacy echoes in the soaring arches of Gothic cathedrals, a direct inheritance of this ancient wisdom. Though built for a different faith, these medieval architects were spiritual descendants of the pyramid builders and stone circle engineers. They replaced polished limestone with vast walls of stained glass, transforming raw sunlight into a kaleidoscope of sacred stories that bathed the congregation in colored radiance. Their cavernous vaults and hard stone surfaces were not just for grandeur, they were precisely engineered to capture the human voice and the choir's chant, magnifying it into a celestial resonance that made the very air feel holy. This was not a new invention, but a brilliant adaptation of a timeless principle, using light and sound to build a bridge between the earthly and the divine. Today, these ancient sites draw millions not as ruins, but as living puzzles. They are pilgrimage destinations for every kind of seeker. Tourists arrive with cameras, hoping to capture a solstice alignment. Scholars come with laser scanners and microphones, striving to quantify the magic. And spiritual seekers from all traditions visit simply to sit in the silence of a stone chamber, yearning to feel the same awe that touched a human heart thousands of years ago. They stand as a universal mirror, reflecting our shared desire for wonder and our enduring questions about our place in the cosmos. Protecting these places is about more than preserving old stones. It is about safeguarding a fundamental chapter of the human story, a testament to what we can achieve when our deepest creativity is guided by a profound reverence for the natural world. They remind us that our potential is not measured by the complexity of our tools, but by the depth of our connection to the universe. As we prepare to conclude this journey, let's gather the core truths that these silent, singing stones have taught us. These ancient stones whisper a final, unifying truth that transcends any single technique or culture. They reveal a universal human impulse to build bridges between the earthly and the ethereal, using the very physics of reality as the construction material. The control of light was never just about marking time. It was about making time sacred, transforming the abstract passage of seasons into a tangible, awe-inspiring event that connected a farmer in his field to the journey of a god. The shaping of sound was not merely acoustic engineering. It was a method of collective therapy, using vibration and resonance to synchronize a community's heartbeats and guide individual minds toward states of openness and revelation. This was a science of the soul, where every aligned corridor and every tuned chamber served a dual purpose, satisfying both a practical understanding of natural law and a profound yearning for transcendent meaning. The master builders did not see a wall between the laboratory and the temple because for them, the entire cosmos was both laboratory and temple. Their legacy is a challenge etched in stone, asking us to look at our own world and consider what has been lost in our modern fragmentation of knowledge. We have gained incredible power over our environment, but we often build spaces that are merely functional, that isolate rather than connect, and that speak to the intellect while neglecting the spirit. The enduring power of these ancient sites lies in their holistic vision. They show us that the ultimate purpose of architecture is not just to shelter the body, but to elevate the human experience, to create environments that remind us we are not separate observers of the universe, but active, resonant participants within a living, breathing cosmos. This is their final gift, not a secret to be uncovered, but an invitation to remember. These silent stones offer a quiet antidote to our frantic modern world. In an era saturated with screens and digital noise, the ancient model of sacred space presents a radically different vision of progress. For them, advancement was not about dominating the natural world, but about entering into a deep and respectful collaboration with it. They saw the sun not as a resource to be harnessed, but as a partner in a cosmic dance. They listened to the earth, building upon its energetic pathways and aligning their structures with its rhythms. This philosophy holds a critical key for us today, as we face a climate crisis born from a mindset of separation and control. Their approach offers a blueprint for a truly sustainable future. It is a call to build with the land, not just upon it, to design with the cycles of light and the properties of sound as our guides. Imagine a city where buildings are oriented to catch the morning sun for warmth and light, not just for the view. Envision public plazas designed with acoustics that foster quiet conversation and community connection, rather than amplifying the chaotic noise of traffic. This is not a retreat to the past, but an evolution forward, integrating ancient wisdom with modern innovation to create environments that nourish the human soul. Our ancestors understood that the spaces we inhabit do more than shelter us. They actively shape our thoughts, our emotions, and our relationships with one another. A home designed with a quiet corner for reflection, a workplace that uses natural materials and soft, resonant acoustics, a park that frames the sunset on the equinox. These are not luxuries. They are fundamental needs for our well-being. By learning from the holistic vision of the ancient builders, we can begin to re-enchant our own world. We can move beyond architecture that is merely functional to create spaces that are transformative, that inspire awe and foster a genuine sense of belonging. This is the enduring invitation from the past, a call to build a future where our technology serves not to isolate us, but to reconnect us, honoring both the vast cosmos above and the quiet spirit within. From the serpent of light descending at Chichen Itza to the haunting chants that once filled the hypogeum, we have journeyed through a world where stone was not just structure, but a living instrument. We have seen how celestial alignments, resonant chambers, and sacred geometry were not separate tricks, but threads in a single, magnificent tapestry. These builders wove them together to create environments capable of transforming consciousness, uniting entire communities, and building a tangible bridge between the earthly and the divine. The ultimate takeaway from this exploration is a profound one. Our ancestors were not primitive. They were masterful artists and keen observers of the natural world, possessing a deep, intuitive understanding of the connection between the physical environment and the human spirit. They knew that the space around us does more than shelter our bodies. It actively shapes our inner world. Let this journey inspire you to look at your own world with new eyes and ears. Notice how the morning light enters your room or how sound behaves in a quiet park. Seek out the hidden harmonies in the spaces you inhabit and recognize the potential for wonder that exists all around us. If this exploration has illuminated something for you, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries, and let's continue this fascinating conversation together.